Welcome to Who Cares, the podcast that embarks on a profound journey into the heart of empathy and indifference in our modern era. Each episode of Who Cares brings you insightful conversations with a diverse array of guests from various industries and walks of life. But Who Cares goes beyond individual stories. We dive into the larger societal and psychological undercurrents that have led to a perceived decline in collective empathy. Who Cares isn't just a podcast. It's a powerful call to action for reigniting the spirit of empathy within each of us. Let's find the answer to Who Cares together. Welcome to Who Cares. Okay, so today on Who Cares, we are lucky to have Brett Waterman here, who you might know from the TV show Restored, featured on Magnolia and HGTV. And instead of me introducing him, I'm going to have him introduce himself and give you an idea of who he is and what he's been up to.
Thank you, Wendy. Happy to be here. Again, my name is Brett Waterman. I do a television show about historic preservation and restoration on HGTV and the Magnolia Network, and working primarily throughout Southern California. But we've done a lot of restorations of all different styles of architecture and periods, everything from the 1800s all the way through the 1970s, really focusing on true restoration while making historic buildings meet a more modern lifestyle and meet the needs of a current day family. And that's really what I spend most of my time doing these days.
Wow. So do you know a little bit about what we do with the podcast here? Is we talk about what people care about, and what's really important to people and why. And so I wanted to ask you about that and how you tie that in with the work that you do, and why is it that for you?
Can you tell me a little bit more about what you guys do with We Care and what the podcast, what's the purpose of the podcast?
It's to highlight, from what I've noticed in the community lately, that a lot of people I don't get the feeling that a lot of people care about what they're doing, or the people around them. There seems to be a lack of focus and a general sense of apathy, I've noticed in places I've been and gone to, and not putting in the passion of what they do, or not seemingly wanting to feel passionate about things, or maybe even not feeling at all, wanting to feel at all. So I've really kind of wanted to focus in on people that are currently working in something that really fulfills them and gives them a sense of purpose and passion and puts their life into it, that it's not just a career, but a lifestyle that they live.
I get that.
Okay, so Brett, how long have you been doing preservation, and how did you get started?
That's an interesting story. So I kind of think I've been doing preservation most of my, certainly adult life and even into my early years. It really kind of started when I was a kid. My parents used to really kind of focus my sister and my attention on architecture and history when we were young kids. I remember specifically after church, generally, we would drive around, look at neighborhoods, and talk about different architecture, and it always kind of sparked a little bit of interest. And I often tell people, I think, as adults and as parents specifically, it's really important to expose your children to the wonders of the world, be that nature, be that arts and sciences, be that the built environment around us. If we're not talking about those things and pointing them out to a new generation, we're not showing them things that we're excited about. And that's my parents. I was very blessed to have a very engaged family, and my parents are still that way. And they're always asking me questions and what are you doing? And I think that level of engagement kind of spurs the curiosity of both children and adults, and it makes us wonder, why?
Yeah.
How did that come to be? What's the backstory? And that's kind of where it always resonated with me.
So, but you actually started in the corporate world, and then you came over to this. How did that come about?
That is what I often say is, there's a great line that life happens while you're planning your future. And we never really know where our life is going to take us. And yes, I had a pretty extensive corporate career. When I got out of UCLA, I wanted to be in construction. In fact, I really, to some extent, fought even going to college. And my parents are like, "You're going to get a degree, and once you get that, you can go do whatever you wanted to." And I'm very thankful that I had that background because I loved my experience at UCLA. Great school. Opened up a lot of my interest in architecture, being around a campus that was full of Romanesque architecture and mid-century architecture, and really got me seeing the different forms and shapes and how materials were used. But when I got out of college, the economy was moving into a major recession, and there wasn't a lot going on in the building industry at that time. And I was recruited by a company, Wang Computers in Boston. Now, which is also really interesting because Wang was the third largest computer manufacturer at the time, and they shipped me off, California kid, to Lowell, Massachusetts for a year or more to learn about the industry, learn about computers, and put me into sales. And I will be honest, I did not really enjoy the computer industry, but what I did love, I loved Lowell, Massachusetts, and seeing New England and all this architecture and the history. And even though I was there to focus, and I did a good job on the corporate side, but in the background, I was, again, kind of fulfilling that interest in architecture.
So it's been kind of happening all along. It wasn't necessarily not happening, but it was just developing in a different way.
Yeah, in fact, I think ever since I was a kid, because of the early days of what my parents were doing, I just started seeing architecture everywhere and nature and how they kind of work together. And so that was always a driving thing for me, even as a kid. My sister will often tell people that I like fixing things. I think that's, honestly, that was my love of the corporate world, whether I was in computers and then I left computer industry and I went into the automotive industry. I didn't love computers. I had to find something else I loved doing, and I love cars. So I went around and knocked on a bunch of car manufacturers' doors here in Southern California looking for a job. And I got an offer from Honda. I was speaking with General Motors and Ford, and then I got an offer from Toyota, who was getting ready to launch a new car company, and they hadn't even named it yet. And so they hired me as part of the corporate program, and I was part of the team that launched Lexus in the United States. So it was really fun.
Yeah.
And but all the time I was restoring furniture, restoring bikes, restoring cars. I just love fixing things. I love that process of seeing something that has been neglected, something that has kind of fallen to the wayside, and seeing it reinvigorate itself, to come back to life and let people appreciate it. I think that's what I really love about what I get to do. So
it's very personal.
Oh, golly.
Whenever you're restoring something, it's very personal to you.
It's personal, and it's tangible. I think that's the one thing, and I think in many truths, in a modern-day society, in a day of a digital environment so much, we don't get the tactile experience, and we don't get to touch and feel as much of the products that we used to in the old days. And whether you're a carpenter in the construction industry, a seamstress, there were so many industries that were physical, and you could see the creation come to life in front of you. And you would start with something very raw, and you'd have a finished product, and you could touch it and feel it and smell it. And I think that there's some of that loss that we don't see today. In fact, I think one of the challenges I think a lot of people find is that there's never an end to their work. There's never a final resulting product that you go, this is what we've worked to achieve, and here it is. And I think I get that every day, and it's what I love about doing restoration and construction, is you really do get a very strong sense of that.
I remember being in Europe and tour guides saying that it took 30 years to build something.
Oh, yeah, or hundreds.
Yes, and I can't imagine in this day and age anybody taking, any more than a month to create something.
It still happens today, and when you think about big projects, be it bridges, the cathedrals, or a lot of times in freeways, think about that. They take years to design, to plan, and I often talk to people about long, bigger projects like you're talking about, and think about the amount of people you employ with those kinds of projects.
Right.
I often talk to people about public works versus private, that public works is a great way, whether we're building courthouses, schools, libraries, post office buildings. It was a way to engage our population in a work force, right? So engineers, designers, planners, architects, mathematicians, and then once you start engaging construction, you're hiring masons, carpenters, painters, glass people, ceramicists, masons. It's just a broad range of the community engaged in building something for all of us.
Do you think that's more of a functional process now than a aesthetic? Because I think back in the day, people would make something to make it beautiful or to felt inspired by something. But now, is it more? Do you see it being more functional?
I think that's a great observation by you, and I think there's a big miss in that is the humanity. We have always strived to build things, right? Because we wanted to shape our environment. So you get beyond basic needs of food. If you get beyond the basic needs of food and water, the next real thing is honestly security, safety around you. And then it's shelter. And shelter is where we create home. It's where we conduct our businesses. And we use architecture to craft how those spaces feel and look. And how do they make you feel? Do you feel comfortable? Does it make you want to get up and do something? And architecture, in my mind, is the highest form of art because it's the art that we live in and where we share our lives with those around us. And I do think today there is a general mindset that it just needs to meet a basic need. And we've lost this sense that the creative embellishment of a building really drives more not only about the functionality of the space, but how does it make you feel when you're in that space? I think when you said you went to travel to Europe, what were the things that you were excited about when you were traveling? What did you enjoy seeing?
For me, it was the detail in everything, going to these chateaus. And I mean, even the detail in the ceiling where you don't need it. Nobody really looks up that often, right? But it forces you to look up. It forces you to see the light bounce off of it or the color, the different colors and the materials that are still there after hundreds and hundreds of years. They're still intact, which is unbelievable to me. And there's excitement, I think, in that for me. The fact that somebody lived there and took care of something that deeply, that it was that important to them, that they put their heart and soul in it. And I think that's what I fear is so missing in our culture now.
I think you just nailed it. And you just said to me, you love the colors, the shapes, the details, but you also touched on another really important part of that. You touched on the fact that you were thinking about the people that built it, the people that were living there. I think that's the one thing that happens in a more modern society where we strip it down. It's just steel and glass. We really lose the human element of how do people interact in these spaces. And you were painting a picture in your head, an image of a long gone past era and the people that were living there and how they lived in these spaces. Isn't that what you were just describing to me?
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's that imagery and those relationships that are still touching people today. I would argue that great architecture continues to do that. I think it fosters better, stronger community ties. These are the spaces we live and work with one another. I also believe, and I want to ask you this question, when you think about, you work in mental health and you talk about people, most people want to feel a sense of belonging, a sense of purpose.
Right.
And I think that's one a lot of modern society has stripped away from us, is that we don't have this human interaction anymore. And we're not creating environments to ask people, hey, I'd like you to be involved in something. And we're going to build a cathedral. We're going to build a school. And I need your help.
Right. Yeah. Well, even if you look back at the craftsman homes that were built, they were built with these huge porches in mind so that you would sit out on your porch and connect with your neighbor.
Yes.
And now I think people don't even think about connecting with their neighbors as much anymore.
People get in, they want to get in their garage as fast as they can, turn on the air conditioning, and turn on the television, get away, or turn on their cell phone.
Right.
But I love that you just said that. You're 100% correct. The porches were not just about the community that you're engaging with, but it was connecting you to nature, the real world, the tangible world around us every day. they were still providing a bit of shelter. So even on a rainy day and a covered porch, you could get outside. You could smell the environment and see nature and interact with it. We put ourselves in these glass boxes that are artificially air conditioned and heated, and we've stripped away the sense of the real world around us. And I think we've lost a little bit of something along the way.
Do you think, in your mind, does that contribute to the apathy that we're having right now? I mean, post-pandemic, and even though people were staying at home more, they weren't necessarily connecting with each other.
I think that's a huge part of it. Again, when I talk to a lot of young people that want to get in the trades and think about careers, I mean, when you think about education and as adults, not only are we responsible for keeping our communities alive and doing well, but our other job is to engage one another and hopefully raise a new generation that are responsible human beings that care about the communities they live in, and ask them to engage in society, to be part of something bigger than themselves. The only way you can do that is to get them excited about what they're doing, to engage them, and to challenge them. I think that's the biggest thing that today I don't see often enough is everything in nature is cause and effect. Nothing exists in nature without something happening, right? So the strongest tree that has endured all of the elements and the strong winters and the harsh summers, those strong trees have survived that. We need to have that same mentality about encouraging our kids, our people our age, and even our seniors to constantly look for ways to grow. And that's by asking them to participate and be part of something. That's just my mindset, and I see it every day around us.
So even in your industry, it's hard to find people that will participate in those things or get that thrill or excitement that you get from doing the restoration and preservation of architecture.
Yeah. It's big patience. You have to have patience. And I think our world of instantaneous, everything they want instant gratification, they're missing the fact that the best things usually take time. But if you never experience the amount of commitment, let me back up for a second. It's like a little league baseball team. If your kids don't understand the sacrifices of practice, of doing the hard work, they're never going to see the results of winning and understanding how you learn from your mistakes and your losses to get to the point where you understand what it takes to win. Because winning isn't something that's just given to you. It requires achievement, and it requires sacrifice. That's true with everything. The best yields that come out of the farm is because the farmer took the time to turn the soil and make sure that the nutrients, you didn't strip it out. It doesn't happen instantaneously. That's everything in nature. But I think today we're like, I want it instantly. But I don't know anything that you got instantly lasts. It doesn't endure the test of time. And I do think the other thing you talked on today about, a modern society, we are a disposable society. I would say that's one, and I'm going all over the board on this, and I'm sorry.
Right.
But you're touching a lot of things that I talk about with people all the time is they want to build a green house, one that's environmentally responsible and sustainable. I think that's incredibly important. I think that we have to be responsible for the grounds that we live in. But that doesn't mean that we should sacrifice the investments that have already made. I mean, when someone goes to tear down a house because they want to build a new house, why don't you save the one that's already there? Am I getting too
well,
deep
it's
into
kind
this?
of like you tearing out the soul of the community, that part that had its place.
When you went to Europe and you and your husband went to travel, what drove you to go to Europe? What did you want to see?
Well, the history, the art, everything that hundreds and hundreds of years, the stuff that we don't have here, maybe thousands of years ago, to connect with that.
And that's what when you plan a vacation, I often talk to people about, planning the vacation, and sometimes is as much fun as the vacation itself because you're imagining all the things you're going to see. You're setting these expectations. Did you ever tell yourself, I really want to go over and see that glass and steel office building?
No, not at all.
right?
No.
You're
Yeah.
going to see the cathedrals,
Yeah.
the temples,
Yeah.
the architecture, the villages with the winding streets and the cobblestones that harken back to memories of what you may have imagined something was like.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the fact that people care so much to do all that, to spend the time to put the effort into that they cared about their communities and their people that much. And I think even traveling this time was even more important because I felt such a lack of that in my own life right now.
Sure.
So to be in the presence of it, it just was incredible.
Okay, I'm going to go a little deeper on this.
Okay.
So when you travel, it's not just the places you see, but it's the people.
Absolutely. For me, it's the connection. I mean, and then the people weren't even there. It's not, it's the people that created those things aren't there, but the energy is still there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
How did you find the people that you met in these small towns and villages?
Oh, it was terrific.
Right?
It was just unbelievably terrific. Yeah.
And what were the
Yeah.
people excited about when you spoke with them?
Just that they had other people there that they could talk to, the community. I mean, they liked the connection and the food and
And they were sharing that with you.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I think the gift of travel really exposes the opportunity to see that the world is much more connected than you would imagine in the world we live in our little towns and villages.
Yeah.
And when you get out, I always say that 95 to 98% of the people around the world are kind, good people, and
Yes.
they're excited
Yes.
that you're there to see and share
Yes.
some of their local thing and that you're
Yes.
interested.
Yes.
I think that goes back to, you're in this profession about helping people way more than even I am. And I always know the best thing, and when I'm on a construction site, the minute you take a moment to talk to the basic laborer who's digging a ditch or anybody, ask them, how you doing, how's it going?
Yeah.
They're like,
Yeah.
wow, you're taking time to talk to me.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, we're all in this together,
Yeah.
and I want to know how you doing, what do you like about your job?
Yeah. But you're making the connection. And, I think what you don't necessarily realize is, they think you're making a connection to them, but really you're making a connection for yourself, and it's just a great feeling.
It's that human interaction. Sometimes when we're shooting the show, I had a producer, we're on tight timelines.
Yeah.
And sometimes we'll be out in a town going to see something, and people will stop and want to talk to me. And the producers are usually like, come on, we got to go, And I go, slow down.
Yeah.
This is something, it may always not be what necessarily perfect ideally for you at this point in the moment, but this person that wants to talk to you might be making a huge difference for them. Just to acknowledge somebody throughout the day that someone says, wow, you took time to talk to me.
Yeah.
And the reality is every time, almost without exception, that I do that, I walk away like, wow, I learned something. I met someone great that I didn't expect I was going to get out of that moment.
Yeah. No, it's like the universe sending you something, and so it's a gift. And if you push it away, I think it's but I think that's what's happening for a lot of people. And they're not making the connection of, that I'm missing out on all these things. They just feel disconnected. Does that make sense?
I think I think it's always been a challenge. I think throughout civilization, people have always, this is why wars and things happen, is because people aren't communicating.
Right.
There's some type of rift that's happening, and it's not getting this. The minute you get two people together to really sit down and talk, all of a sudden you realize, okay, wait a minute, there's much more going on here and more commonality than there are differences every time.
Yeah. Well, historically, they would make rooms for that, correct? They would make a room to talk about all their political views and have a drink and a smoke and sit for hours.
And try to figure out.
Yeah, make sense of it, right?
I think that interaction, and getting back to even to the job situation, is work is healthy. I think today there is some mindset that work's supposed to be fun all the time, and that
or happy all the time.
Happy all the time, and I don't. That's not real. I love what I do, and every day I wake up excited, knowing that I'm gonna discover something new, meet some new people, see something, and I hope that I never lose that sense of curiosity or joy, because I think regardless of the field that you're passionate about, that it's always about the people, it's always about the process, and today brings something new for you to learn. That's what I love about it.
Yeah.
Government is a representative of us as the people to work together, But if you give government too much, then the people won't strive on their own to seek independence and seek the opportunity to fulfill their own life dreams.
Yeah.
I think the minute you tell a kid that you're a victim, that you can't achieve more, or that what you're doing is good enough, I think you're setting the child up for failure. Because in humans, we're never too old to learn. I have this conversation with seniors all the time. You should always be looking to learn more. I mean, I hope to be an avid student until the day I die, because I think that opens up the opportunity to always look for ways to expand my horizon and for those around us. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. To work towards something,
Work
to be
is
engaged.
a healthy thing.
Yeah.
Be engaged.
Yes.
I think that is what, in my mind, whether you want to read, whether you like music, the arts, I mean, it's the best gift that humanity, other than love and kindness that we give to one another, is all of the arts and how that integrates with nature and the world around us. But everyone has something to give. Everyone. Yeah. I don't care if they have mental disabilities, physical disabilities. Everyone has the opportunity to participate in some way. And one of my early mentors, Jean, she's still a very good friend of mine. She was my mentor in my first job with Wayne Computers, and she's a brilliant woman, and she was a great leader. And she always told me, she goes, everyone can participate at the level in which they can. Just know that if you're blessed enough to participate at a higher level, you will be called to do so. So some people will have higher expectations than others, but that doesn't mean that everyone doesn't have a level of expectation from others, that you have to engage and do something. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So that may be kind of what we're missing.
I think the modern world, it's easier to sit back and blame yourself and others for your state instead of understanding how do you move forward. Some of my crews, mistakes happen. We'll be on a construction site. Oh boy, Lee could tell you that some things have happened, and I have to catch myself and understand, all right, this is an opportunity for a lesson here. I'm not going to yell at somebody. I'm not going to scream at somebody. I'm going to handle it in a calm manner. But someone needs to understand that they made a mistake. This is an opportunity to learn. Anything can be fixed. I mean, anything can be fixed with the right commitment and the understanding that you have to make it right.
Right.
But if we don't learn from our mistakes, how do we prevent ourselves from continuing to do them over and over and over? And every time you pass down that gift of knowledge of making a mistake to a new generation, they're hopefully going to store that and take that knowledge, and at one point, they will pass it down to somebody else. That is the gift we need to give. Right. Versus, oh, you know what? That's okay. It's not your fault. It was someone else's fault.
Yeah.
No, it's your fault, and you need to owe up to it, and you need to learn from this so that we don't continue to do that.
Yeah. So it's about taking the responsibility or having them learn to take the responsibility.
We are a society of no responsibility, no accountability. I mean, everyone... I shouldn't say everyone, that's a wrong term to use. A lot of people today, not the majority, but a lot of people are of the mindset that I can do whatever I want and I don't care how it affects anybody else. The reality is your actions have impact on others. And I think we have to be cognizant of that as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, we got maybe deeper than you wanted to get.
No, it's great. It's great.
How do you feel about that? When in your world, I mean, you see people of all different walks of life, all different ages, all different backgrounds.
Yeah.
No one has a perfect history. No one. No one has a perfect life. No. Everyone has challenges in life. And I believe God does that for a reason, and it's individual. Everyone has our own journey. But at the same point, we have to learn how to overcome those and make a better life for you and for others. I mean, you have to see it all the time.
Oh, yeah, I see it all the time. The problem is, for me, it conflicts. So as a therapist in school, you're taught, to validate and to tell the person it's okay and to empathize and all that. And I think after years of doing that in therapy with someone one-on-one, you realize that's not always the most effective thing. I think the clients that I've challenged and have called out on things end up having a much richer session or experience in therapy because they feel respected. They feel like maybe initially they didn't care for being called out on something, but I think over time, you know, even if they don't necessarily come right back, they may come back again and they'll say, you know, I thought about that. And those are my favorite words. I thought about that because you plant a seed and somebody realizes, you know, you cared enough about me to tell me this about myself and that you want to see me grow in that. And to me, that's the experience. That's the ultimate experience of therapy.
Could you almost say that everyone's a farmer? You just said plant the seed.
Yes.
And I got to tell you, I think farmers are probably one of the biggest examples of how you invest in that seed.
Right.
And you nurture that seed and you get the fruits of it.
And you tend your garden.
I think the other thing is, too, farmers had bad winters. You know, and a bad winter can destroy your whole crop. But that doesn't mean you're not going to get back up and do it again. And I often talk to my crew and guys I work with. I can't undo the damage you just did there. I can't change the past, but I can acknowledge it. I can empathize how that happened with you, and not ridicule you. That is the worst thing you can do to somebody.
Right.
But I can ask you to change the situation moving forward.
Yeah.
And I think that's true for all of us.
Oh, and then it makes the connection and relationship between the two of you even stronger, doesn't it? Yeah.
I also would argue, regardless of the field, bad things happen to all of us. Mm-hmm. Everyone has bad things happen at different levels. And some of it are our own making. You know, whether that's drug abuse, you know, whether or not you stole something, a lot of life decisions that happen at a point in time where you're not exactly cognizant of the ramifications of those actions. But if you walk away with a lesson, you're an incredible witness to someone down the road who you're able to say, I've been in your shoes. Mm-hmm. I know exactly what you're going through. Mm-hmm. You may not see it right now because I seem to have everything together. None of us have it together all the time, by the way, ever. But you're at a point to be able to say, I know exactly what you've been through, and I can tell you, you have a better life ahead if you acknowledge it and make a difference in your life. And I think that is true in my field, in construction, all the time. Guys and girls that I work with will get very deflated. I can't believe I just did that. It's okay. Let's understand that was a mistake, and there's a process. Why there is a process to doing something? Now, there's no shortcuts. Right. Isn't that an analogy in life?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Everybody's looking for a shortcut today. I can do it quicker, faster, and cheaper. Well, you're not going to get the same end product. You're not. There's proven history through time, and look at our ancestors and look in history. Things happen for a reason. There's a natural process. I think it was Gene, my mentor earlier on, and one of my early mentors said to me that it takes 9 months in general to have a baby. You can't put 9 women together and have a baby in 1 month. It's physically impossible. That's true. And I use that analogy all the time in construction because people are like, in the show, we need to get the house up in a day. You're going to pour concrete, you're going to build on it. And I go, I can't do that. Yeah. The concrete's got to cure. Yeah. It cannot handle the load. There is a natural order of things. And if you break the process, the end product will not be worth anything.
Right.
So I use the analogy.
Yeah.
And forgive me is that crude with the baby thing, but I think it paints a picture, right?
Yeah.
There is a natural order to things that time has proven to be true.
Yeah. Well, I can imagine with the show that must be quite a challenge because they need to get it filmed and then, but there has to be somewhat of a slow process and then even more difficult with restoration.
Oh.
Because that takes added time.
I'm working on a job site right now with a crew, and I'm working more and more on the design side now and than I am on the construction side. I prefer to get my hands dirty, as you know all too well, but the way my life has evolved and at my age, they're trying to generally move me more into coaching, managing design. So things happen all the time on a job site, and there is an apprenticeship opportunity that I think that is missing a lot today because we learn from those before us. And if you have the gift that someone has taken time to help you understand and give you the knowledge to do something and then repetitive tasks. I mean, you look at these karate and kung fu masters, a lot of it is repetition. You're doing it over and over, so it becomes natural. So that's training. That's with baseball, basketball, sports, gymnastics. It's repetition. It's motor muscles. I would argue that's true with math, science, every single thing. It's repetition and knowledge and how you acquire that knowledge so that you can impart it when you need it.
Yeah. And I mean, and not necessarily these things being a career where you leave it and you go on to your life. That for a lot of people, that kind of work is a lifestyle. They do it at home. They do it at, all hours of the day, and it doesn't stop.
I think you're very correct on that. And I think that goes even deeper. You just said that it's not just a career, it's a lifestyle. Mm-hmm. This is the first time in human history that we have had something known as retirement. Yeah. Retirement never existed until the 20th century. You were engaged in your profession of choice and your community and your family for life. Yeah. It wasn't you got to a point and then you checked out and you went and did something else. Now, some people that are very blessed that have had a lucrative career and they avoided the pitfalls and challenges of life, have enough money saved up. So retirement allows them to continue to do what they love, which is awesome. People ask me all the time. I'm 59 years old as of like 3 weeks ago. So I'm getting to the point where people are like, "Are you thinking about retirement?" I'm like, "No. I love what I do." Yeah. And if God willing, I will be doing the same thing today when I'm 110. I know that sounds crazy, but I love life, and I plan to work all of my life because I think work is a gift.
Yeah. No, I agree with you 100% there. And I get in trouble a lot with my industry because, we're supposed to set the boundaries and we're supposed to worry about self-care and all that. So we're supposed to make the separation between our work and our clients and all that. And I think if you're really passionate about it and you really like it, it's almost impossible to do that.
I agree with that.
Because people come into you and they come into you for certain things and you connect with them and you can't turn that off.
No. And it's always about people, what you just said.
Yeah.
I mean, my closest friends I've all met through work. I mean, I look at my broad range of friends and probably 80-90% of them are from work experience and careers and you get to know people. Yeah. That's what I love about what I do now. It's always about the people.
Right.
Always.
Right. Yeah.
What do you love about your job?
The people.
Right.
And seeing them have the light bulb moments. I think that's the most exciting without me saying much of anything, but me saving the place for them when they come in and each week where you feel sometimes defeated because you don't see much movement, and then they come in and they say one thing and it's that spark and that they've moved to a different place. They're seeing their situation from a different perspective, and that is enough. Because that's movement. That's something that's happening right then and there. And to be able to witness somebody in that is probably the most exciting thing for me to see ever.
Well, what you just described to me is exactly what I see in construction, right? I get to craft something that's broken, that has problems, and make it work again and see it actually function. That's what you do with people.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's a gift.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing is, as we were talking earlier, is our work life is broad. I don't just do construction, right? I have to take care of my body, and I have to take care of my family, and I have to take care of my community. So that's all work. Yeah. I have to do my taxes, and I have to pay bills. I mean, all the drudgery things that we all have to do.
Right.
We also have to do civic engagement. I mean, when I speak at Valley Forge, when I go out and talk to people about this, I'm not always looking for a financial receipt. Right. Because my receipt is my investment in my community. I think there's a big problem with that. Do you see that in modern society?
Oh, absolutely. It's about being a citizen. You're a citizen in your community. There is a responsibility in that, but also a respect and it defines your place in the world as well. So it's not motivated by outside things other than, wanting to connect and be part of something.
I think it's a very healthy thing for people to understand that engaging with those around you is something you get personally out of it, and you help. They always say that a rising tide lifts all boats, right? We're all in this together,
right?
And I also think that I was just talking about this Valley Forge, and we're talking about preservation and why do we save these old buildings? I go, because I'm respecting the works of those before us, our mothers and fathers that spent all this time creating whatever it may be, from furniture to housing to a quilt. Those are things that someone put their heart and soul in investment, and it's a gift to future generations.
Right.
We never own anything. We're just supposed to be good stewards while we're here, that we leave things and hopefully a little bit better than we found them. And that's why we have to invest in our kids, invest in our community and our people around us, so that we leave something that is better for all of us to come. And you do that every day.
Yeah. Well, you do too.
Well, we all do, right?
Yeah,
At some point. But I think many people don't understand that they have an opportunity to do more.
Yeah. Well, and I think that is the what causes the direct cause of depression and anxiety in our society.
Well, what do you think that you think it's isolation?
Yeah, I think it's not having the purpose or the the passion, or not feeling connected to other people. And as many tools as we have in technology to connect, I think we're the most disconnected we've ever been in the world. I
think you're right on that.
Yeah.
I think the cell phone, television is probably what started much of that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's what got many places around the world to go in instead of communicating out. We're going to watch the tube and take information.
Right.
I'm going to ask you this. Do you like to read?
Yeah.
And I think what I love about reading a book is when you're reading a book, what are you doing? You're digging into reading. You're focusing. What else are you doing?
You're being maybe inspired by someone else's art.
Correct.
Yeah.
But I would argue that when you're reading, you're painting a picture in your head. Your
imagination.
Imagination is a core human thing, and right. So the way you see the world, they're not identical, right? We all see things at different heights, different levels, different colors, things you focus on. And when you're reading a book, you're creating that world in your head.
Yeah.
You visualize what the characters look like. What does the scene look like? It all comes to life. That's an incredibly creative experience. When you're watching television, you're just taking in what someone is feeding you. Someone else, don't get me wrong, very creative, and hopefully it spurs other creativity to you. But to engage in reading is a creative process. And I think it also allows people to engage with one another.
Yeah, very much so.
And you were just saying isolation. And I think today, we have all of these modern technologies to connect to one another. But now it's not this.
No.
Everyone's like, "Oh, can I FaceTime you?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "I don't want to FaceTime.
No.
Let's go get a coffee, sit down and talk." Right.
The intention of, I want to spend time with you. So I think what that does is it makes you feel important.
Yep.
That person wants to spend time with me. It's not limited to a screen on a phone.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Look at our seniors, and you get into seniors that are in need of care, that are in assisted living, or I think we're often missing out on the opportunity of a lot of our seniors because of the retirement thing. We said, they've kind of served their time, they move on. We got to get them back in. I mean, do you deal with a lot of seniors that are going through this? Because I don't think mental health ends at adolescence or your 50s. Right?
No, I think there's too many limitations. I think it's hard for them to get here. I think that when we do try to do telehealth, technology is a challenge for seniors. So really, seniors need somebody to come to them and make that connection. Yeah.
When I'm talking to staff or crews, I talk about the village. And if you look at humanity from the early days of cave dwellers and how we've evolved all over the world, we always lived in villages for the most part, and the villages were for the common good. Your children, your adults, your young adults, and your seniors. Everyone had a role to play, and there were no freeloaders, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you never left anyone behind. Everyone was taken care of, but at the same time, everyone had something to do. When you get to a certain age, maybe you were taking care of the young people. You were providing security. You were helping with the meals, helping with cleaning. But it goes back to that whole mindset of if we think about that, we still live in a village.
Yeah.
And everyone has a role to play.
Yeah.
That means that everyone is valued.
Yes, absolutely.
Everyone has value.
Yes.
And I think that in a modern society is the message that's missing more than anything else, is that everyone has an inherent value, and I need you to help me and us do something.
Yeah.
That's the best gift you can get somebody.
Absolutely.
Do you ever play dodgeball when you were a kid?
Yeah.
And they'd line you up on the wall, right? And they'd pick their teams. What was the most humiliating thing that happened to you?
Pick last.
Pick last.
Yes.
Right? There's nothing better than someone saying, Wendy, you're on our team.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
enthused
yes.
versus, all right,
I'll take
we
him.
got Brett. You're like, I'm not wanted.
Right.
That is a message that we all need to look at, is like, you want to be, hey, we want you.
Yeah.
Because everyone has something they can do.
Necessary.
Everyone's
important.
necessary.
Yeah. Okay, so you brought up a little bit about education, and you thinking that's kind of maybe the issue with a lot of what's going on. Where do you,
The challenges?
Yeah.
I think, again, education for every human being. I mean, education goes back to the beginnings of humanity, right? We learn through life experience. We pass down those experiences, successes and failures, to a future generation to help them move forward. That's what education is. Now, what education is today in America, I question that we're giving the broad range of education that has served us so well for centuries. We've abandoned a lot of the mechanical arts and trades.
Yes.
Machine shop, wood shop, carpentry, all of the basic skills that built society, we've almost abandoned. And now, don't get me wrong, I think the sciences are incredibly important. And we need to, so to speak, scratch that surface so the kids get a taste of things. But I think one of the biggest things about education is, it goes back to the old saying, is you don't know what you don't know. If you don't give people, not just kids, but adults, the opportunity to experience the broad range of skill sets and knowledge to see where there are career opportunities in the trades, a lot of kids don't understand, both men and women. A lot of young girls are like, well, I'm not interested in construction. Why not? Why aren't you interested in construction?
Yeah.
Well, girls, there's a lot of very successful women in the construction industry. When you start looking back and understanding the broad range of services and trades available, everything from architecture, design, project management, masonry, ceramics, glass, steel, iron, all those things. Women succeed in every one of these trades. It goes back to the whole thing is kids need to get an exposure to the broad range of services. They go, I'm kind of interested about that.
And where do you think that should start?
I think it has to start at the earliest levels of our education, and we have to have a very strong sense of it in our junior and our high school. So many kids today, at least in America, are told you need to go to college. Even my parents forced me to go to college,
too.
right?
Uh-huh.
And I'm thankful because education is a gift that will serve you your entire life.
Yeah.
But I think I also could have been served by a great education in a technical school that I would have learned cabinetry making, furniture making, masonry. I'll give you a perfect example. My senior year at UCLA, I had to take GED. You have to take some general requirements. My class I took, my spring quarter at UCLA was geology. I had no interest in geology. Didn't even. It was my favorite class throughout UCLA.
Oh, wow.
I got an A in it. I aced it. I loved it. Had I taken geology my freshman year, I probably would have been a geology major because I never made the connections of mineralogy and iron and all of the different elements and how they're incorporated into everything in nature. I found it fascinating. And now in construction, I'm always talking about difference between sandstone and limestone and quartzite versus granites and marbles. Where do they fall? And the different periodic table and how does that work? And understanding bedrock and how you build. It's all in geology.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I didn't know.
Right.
It would have changed my course.
Right.
Now, I'm a firm believer that God puts things in your life and you are where you're supposed to be at that point in time. But that doesn't mean that a new fork in the road isn't going to open up for you. I mean, look at my career from computers to automotive. I left to go into the .com craze and be part of the industry that created Realtor.com and a lot of that.
Wow.
And then verge out of that into banking and securities. And I've had a broad range. And people look at my resume and they're like, my gosh, you're all over the board. And I go, yeah, but I've learned something at every stage.
Yeah.
We need to do that for kids. And there's got to be, I mean, what do you think education, when you look at education today and you deal with a lot of people, where do you think education has succeeded and where do you think it's failed?
No, I think it's definitely along the lines of what you're saying, having to do with exposure to things, because that's how they learn, they touch, they feel, they see how something works, like you said, mechanically, and they don't just theorize about it. You know, it's actually hands-on. That's actually very important, and we don't put a lot of value on hands-on things.
Value. You just said a key word, value.
Yeah.
I think maybe one of the problems with education is the notion that it's free.
Yeah.
If something is free, you don't put a lot of value on it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's free.
Yeah.
You know, nothing is free.
Yeah.
Someone had to sacrifice to create this to make it free.
Right.
Someone has to work so that you can have this for free. Nothing's for free.
Right.
Could it possibly be that if there was a charge or a service that you had to do to get education, maybe kids and parents would put more value on it?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Or if you had to work to get that education, absolutely.
I think the whole notion of free is a big lie. Mm-hmm. And I think that is often used throughout lots of ranges in society to break down your choices.
Yeah.
Because if someone's giving you something for free, chances are you're giving up something to get something for free. You just don't realize that you're giving something up. And I think education, as I said from the beginning, is a gift. Mm-hmm. It's a gift to anyone who is willing to receive that gift and how you use it. Mm-hmm. But if they don't value it, they're not going to hold it close and dear and protect it.
Mm-hmm. And how it goes back to what you say, though, is how do they know that they don't know that? Does that make sense?
It comes from people like you and I.
Yeah, yeah.
When you talk to young people about getting into mental health or any kind of family services, how do you impart that exuberance, that excitement? What do you say to them? This is, you might be interested in this. How do you use, or what do you use to get someone excited about it?
I think mostly just saying that we've created this space just for you, that you can be whoever you want to be in the space, and you get to, be challenged and talk about all those things that you probably don't get to talk about in your regular life with other people because of so many fears of being shamed or judged, or family members are going to be biased in the way they respond to you. They can't help it. But sitting with someone else who's witnessing your life and experiencing you and maybe giving you feedback and trying to connect with you, where else do you get that in your life?
I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
And again, it's a gift, right?
Yes.
It's a gift that we give to one another.
Absolutely.
I think you asked me about education. How do we change this? I think we have a lot of great teachers, a lot of great administrators. We have really good people engaged, and they're all struggling with this too. But there is a mindset that I think doesn't place a value on a lot of the manual trades.
Right.
We become a society where we import everything.
Right.
We used to be a net exporter to the world, and we provided the bulks of our products and services that we needed right here.
Right.
I also believe that you've got to get kids excited about all the things they can do.
Right.
I mean, in this world that has so many opportunities, I mean, everywhere, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
Set the stage.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to let you sit home and do nothing.
Yes, yes.
That is the choice I'm not going to give you.
Yeah.
You have to choose to participate. You're going to fail. You're going to stumble. You're going to have challenges, but you're going to learn all the way along, and you're going to find something that you love to do, and you're going to get acknowledged for it.
And that's how you build a good human, right?
100%, right? Growth.
Yeah.
Growth happens through adversity and challenges.
Yeah, yeah.
So education, it's on all of us.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
I think that might be a common theme that's problem not just here but globally. We expect someone else to do it. Well, the government's going to do it.
Yeah.
My boss is going to do it. The neighbor down the street's got to do it. Someone's got to fix that problem.
Yeah.
You better look in the mirror.
Yeah.
Because that someone is you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And too often we're looking for someone else to make the hard choices. So in your line of business, how do you get someone to make a hard choice? Because it's all about choices.
I think you open up all the different areas so for them to look at instead of telling them how to do something.
So you're asking them to imagine a path of opportunity?
Yeah, different paths of opportunity or consequence,
Do they, I'm trying to phrase this in a way where I want to get you to go down a path. I think quite often, and correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of people will look at their past experience of a failure, of a struggle, of a challenge, and that blinds them to opportunities in the future.
Yes.
I can't move forward because there's a
Yes.
massive obstacle here that happened over here.
Yes.
It happened in the past. I can't fix that.
Yeah.
Pick a new path.
They can't separate themselves from it, so they become it.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's the issue. They become the sickness.
The sickness is the struggle they didn't learn how to overcome.
Right.
Whether it's self-inflicted or something horrible happened to you by another individual.
Right.
But
they integrate it somehow to make sense of it.
And wasn't that also tied to guilt?
Oh, absolutely. Guilt, shame, fear.
Right.
All those things.
And those are controlling things that you've got to learn to get away from.
Right.
It's like when I talk to someone that made a bad choice on a construction site. They broke a window. They ripped out something that they weren't supposed to rip out. The guilt, the fear, the shame that's holding them back. The worst thing I can do is, you're an idiot. You ruined this.
Right.
I need to approach it in a way and say, okay, I thought we talked about this, but maybe I wasn't clear. Let's understand how this happened. Let's understand how we're going to not do this again. And do you understand the mistake you made?
Yeah.
Because if they get a lesson out of this
Yeah.
and they're not going to do it again, that's worth it to me.
Well, and if they can figure out and troubleshoot how to figure out a solution, that's what's most important, because it's empowering at that point, right?
Oh, you just said something. There's always a solution.
Always a solution.
It may not be the easiest choice, but there's always a path forward.
Yes.
And would you not say that element in construction, regardless of your job, and especially for mental health,
yes,
there's always a path forward.
Always a path forward.
And there's tools and people to help you move forward.
Yes, there are people that care about that.
Yeah. But at some point, how do you get people to realize the biggest responsibility falls on you?
That's the challenge. And to let them sit with the fear of that, and that's okay.
Yeah. Oh, we all have fear every day.
Yeah.
Right?
But not to avoid it.
Yeah.
To sit with it, and it doesn't kill you or it doesn't consume you.
I'm not going to get too deep into faith, but as a practicing Christian my whole life, I will tell you, regardless of your faith, that knowing that in the end, everything is going to be okay gives you a lot of solace and comfort, knowing that someone's got my back. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Family, friends, God, and knowing that whatever happens to you, you're going to be fine. Mm-hmm. I find strength in that. And I think it drives me in a lot of things I do in life. Mm-hmm. And I think that, again, sense of community, sense of family, sense of purpose, all of those things come together to make a healthier human being, in doing so, a healthier community.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think it really depends on the person. It is finding what they believe in and what inspires them and gives them a sense of value.
But that comes from here.
Yeah.
Always comes from here.
Yeah.
And it goes back to, how do you instill confidence in children and people all the way along? Mm-hmm. People get stripped of their confidence, and it can happen so quickly.
Oh, absolutely.
So how do you deal with that?
I think acknowledging them.
Mm-hmm.
It's the acknowledgement of people. I see you. I see what you're going through. I witness your experience, and it's valid and it's important.
Yep.
And let's see how it's what it's done for you instead of how it's killed you.
And I see this with a lot of people of all ages, people older than me that have overcome incredible challenges, drug abuse, addiction. I mean, there are so many success stories. There are way more success stories than there are failures, because success is what makes the world move forward. And if everyone failed, we'd be in a really dire situation. Right. And I think hope gives people so much an example that you're not the only person that's going through this. You're not the first person that's going through this.
Absolutely.
You're not the first person that broke a window. Every person that struggles with something today, someone's already been through that path.
Absolutely. Well, that's the biggest thing, I think, when I first see couples, is I always tell the people that I mentor, you have to start by giving them a sense of hope. Yep. Because they always think they're the worst couple you've ever seen. And that this is a worse situation.
And humans do that inherently, right? We think it's all me. I'm by my own.
Right.
I'm the worst. I've created this situation.
Right.
But you can also be the one to fix everything too.
Yes, absolutely.
And those are the lessons. And having conversations with people, right?
Yes.
And opening up. Someone once told me we're all like ducks on the water. If you look above the water, everything's very calm. But below, things are kicking like this, because we don't want anyone to know that everything isn't perfect. Yeah. The reality is we all have struggles in life.
Absolutely.
And acknowledging that and figuring out, again, that path forward and getting excited about something.
Yes, yeah.
Excitement drives behavior.
Yes.
Anger can drive a lot of bad behavior.
Yes.
You deal with that?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
How do you talk to people about separating the difference between anger and excitement? Because I'd say those are two opposite ends of the same energy.
Yeah. Well, that's what we start with. I think we say something that we relate the two of them. You know, it's excitement in a different way, and how can you transform that into something more productive?
Right.
Because the anger isn't always productive.
No. Some people,
but it can be.
I was just going to say, I know some people that use that to drive something.
But you have to be conscious of it. If you're not conscious of what your anger is doing and how it's playing out in your life,
right,
then I think it's more dangerous.
I think there's also, talk to me, it's also about verbal and nonverbal communication.
Yeah.
How do people respond to that? Because all of those nonverbals can do just as much harm as the verbal. Mm-hmm. You know, the disdaining look, the ignoring.
Oh, absolutely.
All of those things.
And you know what? A lot of people don't know they're doing it. So if I point that out in a therapy session, a lot of times that's new to somebody.
Where they're doing this.
Yeah. And I'll say, let me take a moment. Did you notice that you looked to your left, or you looked up, or you rolled your eyes when she said that? And they're like, I did? You know, and it's such a shock that it's such an automatic response.
Right. They don't even know they're doing it.
No. So the consciousness is the important piece.
Right.
You know?
And the impact it has on others.
Right.
Around you that see that. I mean, playing sports was group dynamics is a great lesson for every young person. Anytime you're in a group activity or team activity, you learn to relate to other people, and that as much as we want to encourage you to achieve to your maximum, you also have to realize you have to play well with others.
Right.
If you don't play well with others, you're going to have a very challenging life.
Right. That's what it's about.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I love this.
I want to thank you for your time, and I really appreciate this talk. And
I loved it.
I could go on.
Give me that hand.
I could go on all day long. But
we could go on. Yeah. We probably took way too much time.
Yeah, but that's okay.
Your first question to me was, what do you care about? I think more than anything, all of us need to care about each other, the communities we live in, and the impact we have on ourselves and others. If everyone took those basic things, we'd all be a lot better off.
Yeah.
So thanks for doing this.
Agreed. Yes, thank you.
I love what you're doing.
Thank
awesome.
you. Yeah.
I look forward to hearing the perspective of a broad range of people that you've been telling me that you're going to bring into this discussion.
Yeah.
Of all trades, professions, ages. I think that's going to be a very enlightening window to open up and expose to people across the board personal perspectives and stories. And stories are what we've been using for thousands of years to impart knowledge. And I think you're doing a great job.
Thank you. Thank you so much.